You are listening to Brayford Radio. This recording was originally broadcast on the 6th of October 2016. For copyright reasons, this audio has been edited to remove any music being played during the show. We hope you enjoy the recording of Formula Tom, with me, Tom Cairns, Martin Bulbrook, Callum Hartley and Harry Parker.
Good evening and a warm welcome to Formula Tom on Brayford Radio after our 4.5 month break. With me tonight is my regular Martin Bulbrook, as well as two new rookies who have joined the grid tonight, who are F1 enthusiasts Callum Hartley and Harry Parker. As you may already know, tonight will be our 2-hour catch-up edition, focusing our thoughts on the races that have flown by since our last show in May, with the addition of our Japanese Grand Prix preview that takes place this weekend for the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka. You guys can be involved in the conversation via Twitter, sending in your tweets at Brayford Radio, or you can go to the Formula Tom or Brayford Radio Facebook pages to send in your messages or posts, and we will share them during the next 120 minutes. So, guys, how are we feeling?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Ready for the new season of Formula Tom, really.
Yeah. How do you think Formula 1 has changed this season since the last live show, Martin? Because you were here when we were discussing our Monaco Grand Prix preview show, weren't we?
Yeah. So Monaco Grand Prix, we at that time obviously Rosberg was thoroughly in control of the championship. He was looking comfortable. Since then, a lot has changed. I don't know what to say really. A lot has changed over the duration with all the European Grand Prix happening.
Callum?
Yeah, there's been ebbs and flows in the season. I mean, like Rosberg at the start of the season won like the first 4 or 5 races of the season. Hamilton's obviously picked it back up, and now it's this momentum swing back to Rosberg. But it's all still to play for, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm going to go with that. I'm going to say still go anyway, really.
Alright. Tonight we'll be doing a review of the Grand Prix that have happened since the last live show. Of course, I've mentioned the Monaco Grand Prix preview show, so we'll begin with Monaco. What do you remember from Monaco, guys?
I remember Hamilton controlling the race. He had a bit of there was a wet patch in the race, and Hamilton stayed out, and basically Ricciardo pitted, and then Hamilton pretty much won the race from there. But it was a quite impressive lap from Hamilton to get pole in the first place, and
because the skill that Hamilton took, really, because it was wet and obviously it was a narrow circuit and it was hard to
Hamilton seems to perform better in the wet conditions. I think Hamilton's probably one of the best in the wet conditions in the whole grid, I'd say, not just Rosberg.
Yeah, because I think Ricciardo went from wets to intermediates and then to dries, whereas Hamilton stayed on the full wets and went straight to slicks after then.
Yeah.
But do you think that played, because it panned out better for Hamilton despite the fact that Red Bull got their pit stop wrong, crucially for Ricciardo?
Yeah, I think it was kind of fitting that on 50th. It was Hamilton's 50th win on an F1 victory, so it's quite fitting. It was at Monaco in the rain, and I think it's his specialist conditions really for Hamilton.
Yeah, it just gave him the momentum back. It's what he really needed after the start of the season.
Martin?
Yeah, I thought it was a really big turn, especially how the season's now planned out. It's put Lewis Hamilton, from coming out of this, he looked confident again. He's got his confidence back from the poor start that he's had. He's closing the gap back down on Rosberg, and yeah, he got a bit lucky with obviously Ricciardo not being as close to him at the end with the Red Bull mess up on the pit stop. But still, you need a bit of luck every now and again.
And not to forget the podium for Force India. I mean, good achievement.
Yeah, it's a good achievement for Perez. I mean, he's good in the wet conditions as well. He's been kind of a driver who's kind of been in and out. I mean, McLaren, he kind of struggled with Button, and since he's gone to Force India, he's kind of excelled in his driving.
Yeah, personally, I think he's kind of shown up Hulkenberg a little bit this season, because obviously Hulkenberg's a pretty highly rated driver, and Sergio Perez pulled the result out of the bag.
Yeah, and just go through the results from the Monaco race. Hamilton achieved his 50th Grand Prix win and also his first win of 2016. Ricciardo was second despite the flopped pit stop and of course being on pole position, the only non-Mercedes driver to have taken pole position this year. Then it's Perez in third for Force India, with Sebastian Vettel in fourth, Fernando Alonso finishing his best finish this year in fifth, with Hulkenberg sixth in the second Force India, but despite overtaking Rosberg on the last lap. Sainz is eighth, with Button ninth, and Massa taking the final point in 10th for Williams. So what about the other points? I mean, Alonso. I mean, that's a big high there for McLaren with the Honda power unit.
Yeah, they've struggled, not as much as last year, but this year they've struggled, but going on towards like the now races, they're doing all right. They're picking up the speed a bit, but yeah, they're still struggling. I think with the new power unit they're going to maybe get from next year, they're looking into it. There could be a force next year. With Alonso, obviously Button's retired. The new rookie driver coming in, who's apparently quite promising, I've heard. So.
And going through the final finishes, Gutierrez was 11th, followed by Bottas, Grosjean, Verline and Harry Enzo, with the non-finishes of Ericsson, Nasser, Verstappen, Magnussen, Kvyat, Raikkonen and Palmer. In terms of the Badger GP results for that one, Delta F1 was the winner with 95 points, so well done to the manager of that team, of Jack Murphy. In terms of the other awards, the driver of the day went to Force India's Sergio Perez, the fastest pit stop went to Williams' Valtteri Bottas with a time of 2.43 seconds, and the fastest lap went to Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton. Do you think these kind of awards are very much encouraging for these drivers, now that the likes of Perez have got the driver of the day? I mean, Williams are very, very trained up to these pit stops, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Obviously, Williams, as we know, as we talked about before we went off air, Williams were getting the fastest pit stop week in, week out. They've obviously worked on it, and pit stops do play a big bit. As we saw, the Red Bull flop cost Ricciardo some vital seconds. He could have been up there challenging Hamilton really hard, but he wasn't because of the flop pit stop. Williams have got that settled. Driver of the day is bringing in loads of confidence for the young drivers.
Williams have kind of struggled this year though. I mean, last season they were getting on the podium quite a lot, challenging Mercedes in some of the races, but this year they kind of struggled. From last year, which is, I didn't expect that at the start of the season. I expected them to fly up, and it seems like Red Bull have catched them and Ferrari have catched them. So it'd be interesting to see next year.
Whether that's just funding though, because obviously the amount of funding Ferrari and Red Bull can bring.
And just move on now. We're going on to Canada next. The Ferrari coming close, you know. Vettel, he, despite starting third, he made a blinder of a start to overtake the Mercedes off the line. Hamilton and Rosberg, not for the first time in 2016, came to blows at turn 1 where Rosberg had to go wide to avoid a collision, but coming off worse off than Hamilton going down the order. Do you think?
Well, I think if Hamilton loses the championship, it's definitely going to be his starts. I mean, Vettel's had some good starts this season, but Hamilton's dropped a lot of starts. If he kind of got to the first corner in first place, the season could have been a different standings to what it is now. Rosberg had a pole race that year, in the Canadian Grand Prix, finishing 5th, and he slipped down to 9th in his first lap, so that's even worse than Hamilton's. But yeah, the Mercedes have kind of struggled at the start of the races. I thought they would have fixed the problem throughout the season, but it seemed like now and again it keeps happening time and time again. So
no, with the other results, I mean, Bottas finishing 3rd for Williams. I mean, that's their only podium finish of the year so far, but that must have been a pleasing sight for the team, despite how far they are away from the likes of Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull.
Yeah. I'd say because the Canadian Grand Prix is kind of a fast technical track, and Bottas is kind of a technical driver. He's good at the corners, he's good at overtaking. So I think that's a good result for them, especially finishing ahead of Red Bull and Ferraris at that point, who were quite strong then, as you could see with the Ricciardo, Perez as well, doing all right then. So. And
Harry, you saw Max Verstappen make a rise over the year, of course, since his debut, but it was his 3rd race with Red Bull. But how well did he do fending off Rosberg in the closing stages?
He's obviously a very talented driver. I mean, he would be in my school year if I was still in school. So it's kind of ridiculous to think. But he's obviously got talent. He just needs to kind of tune it down a little bit, because all the drivers are starting to get onto him a little bit, especially with later races.
What about you, Martin?
Yeah, obviously we spoke a lot about him pre-season because we was on air. He was a very upcoming, promising young driver, and we said, how's he going to cope? And then obviously we watched the move to Red Bull, what he had this season, and then he got his first win of Grand Prix as well, and he has been driving great. But as Harry said, he is a very forceful driver, shall I say.
And going into the results now, Hamilton made it back-to-back wins, his 51st of his career. Vettel finished second, despite only 5 seconds behind Hamilton in the final reckoning, with Bottas third, Verstappen finishing fourth ahead of Rosberg, Raikkonen, and then Ricciardo in seventh, followed by Hülkenberg, Sainz and Perez, the points finishers. With Alonso, Kvyat, Gutierrez, Grosjean, Ericsson, Magnussen, Verline, Nasser and Harriota completing the finishes, and the retirees of Massa, Palmer and Button, which is such a shame because Button, I think he reasonably qualified quite well. He could have done with some good points, but the engine let him down, unfortunately, in the opening stages of the race.
Yeah, it did. I believe I think he got to Q1, did he not? Or was it Q2?
Or maybe Q2, either Q2 or Q3. He can't have got into Q1.
Yeah, Q2 or Q3, that's what I meant. I believe it's his best actual qualifying this season. And obviously, as you said, he had the unfortunate event of the engine giving out. He hasn't had a great season. He's announced his retirement now, which would be sad to see him go. But he is still a phenomenal driver. And
going to the Badgers GP results for Canada, Mark's Mercedes GP was the winner of the league of that event with 148 points. Max Verstappen got the Driver of the Day award. The fastest pit stop went once again to Williams' Valtteri Bottas with a time of 2.11 seconds. The fastest lap went to the Mercedes of Nico Rosberg. If you guys have your thoughts on the season so far, then do please tweet in at Brave Radio or send in your posts or messages to the Brave Radio or Formula Tom pages, and we will share them later on. In the meantime, here's your first question of the evening, and it is, how many different drivers have scored a 25-point race win? And can you name all of them? I'll repeat the question again. How many different drivers have scored a 25-point race win? And can you name all of them? The answer will be given after What Do You Mean by Justin Bieber. This is Tom Cairns on Formula Tom. You are listening to Brayford Radio. And that was What Do You Mean by Justin Bieber. The question we asked before we left was, how many different drivers have scored a 25-point race win? And can you name all of them? Do you have any guesses, guys?
Well, obviously Hamilton, Rosberg, Ricciardo. I'm not too sure about Verstappen. I don't think he's actually won a race yet. I think he's got on the podium, but I don't think he's won a race. I'd say 3.
I've scored a 25-point race win, so since the point system.
Yeah, it's actually Vettel.
Vettel,
well.
Alonso, Button.
Yeah.
I'd say
Raikkonen?
I'd say 9, I think.
Anyway, just a quick guess because we need to move on.
Go 9.
Yeah.
I'll go with 10 then.
I can tell you the answer is 10.
Oh.
So very well done, Harry, with a good guess. The 10 drivers are Sebastian Vettel, Fernando Alonso, Jenson Button, Lewis Hamilton, Mark Webber, Pastor Maldonado, Nico Rosberg, Daniel Ricciardo, Kimi Raikkonen and Max Verstappen. So those are the drivers who have scored a 25 points race win since the point system began in 2010. We've got a tweet in from @JofiGem, and he's saying, do you think Verstappen will be a future world champion?
I don't see why not. I mean, he's young enough, he's got the team. Red Bull probably looking strong next season to challenge Mercedes, but we've said that for the last 2 or 3 years, so you never know. But he's definitely got the talent. He's got the family history as well, with his dad being an F1 driver, not actually winning the championship, but having experience. So he's got like a good temperament. I think he's kind of aggressive, but that's what I like in a young driver. That reminds me of a young Hamilton when he was aggressive. You don't want someone who's cautious. I'm not going to take the risk. So I think he's got all the talent to be a world champion, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, but I'd say it probably won't be for a couple of years yet. I feel that he'll have to further himself as a driver because he's a little bit reckless at times. He'll need to just get that out of his system because you can't win a season on 7 retirements. So
yeah, I'd agree. Obviously, as we all know, he's got great talent, but as you said, he is a little bit reckless at quite a few times, which I know young Lewis Hamilton was, but Lewis Hamilton seemed to make it work a lot more than Verstappen is doing at the minute.
He's got the X Factor there, so.
yeah, it's good to watch.
So if I was to answer that, I think he will be a world champion. It's just a matter of time, really, because if he wants to become the youngest ever world champion, he needs to win the championship, I think, next year, because he'll turn 20 this time next year. So So yeah. Anyway, we need to move on now. We move on to the inaugural Baku race, the European Grand Prix. What did we learn from that, guys? Because it was obviously a new circuit to all the drivers, and of course for us to know the circuit itself. Well, how did we feel?
I personally liked the circuit. I felt it's a mix of, obviously it had the really sharp bit, which is sort of like Monaco, with having like the really tight narrow bit going up the hill. And then also it still had the nice corners. I thought it run well as a track, but there wasn't much, shall we say, drama. It's quite a straightforward, just pure driving track.
And what about that straight that led onto that pit straight? That very long straight. I don't think I've ever seen anything as, I can't remember. So it's amazing. That amazing straight, because I played the F1 game on it and it's unbelievably good. I mean, have you experienced that, Callum, like during the race?
Yeah, it's like you get up to high speed and that. Like it added a bit of drama to the race because a lot of overtakes down there. But the Baku race, I don't think I like seeing the traditional circuits, the Spas, the Monzas. The new races like Bahrain don't really excite me at all. But that's just my opinion. But I like seeing the ones that are, because when they took the German Grand Prix off, I was quite annoyed about that because that's a good track, and they took it off for financial reasons. So they were talking about that for the British Grand Prix a few years ago, and I was like, oh no, don't get rid of the British Grand Prix. It's one of the best tracks on the circuit. Yeah.
So moving on to the European Grand Prix, back to what we were saying. Obviously Rosberg, back to his winning ways. I think it was his first win in 4 races, I believe. He needed that to get back on track, despite Hamilton's qualifying error in Q3, because Hamilton hit the sort of narrow bit on the inside of the barrier that damaged the suspension and put him out of running in Q3.
Yeah, certainly. Obviously, I'm not actually surprised the Mercedes won on that track, because it did have such a long straight, and the Mercedes are so fast in a straight line. I'm not actually surprised, but as you said, Rosberg really needed that. Hamilton was closing in on him. He was under the pressure. People were like, well, he was uncomfortable. What's happening to him? And he brought it back in that race, and he showed that he is still there, and he ain't going to let Hamilton catch up with him.
Yeah. It always seems to be a race like Hamilton always seems to have a good run, then there's always an engine problem or a problem with his car, which has happened, especially in his first year at Mercedes, second year at Mercedes when he won the World Championship. Mm-hmm. Rosberg had a lot of luck that season, I remember, and Hamilton had a lot of engine problems. So that kind of halted him, and he just scraped the championship in the last race. But it's looking like an exciting finish to it. But yeah, he's been quite unlucky with his car and stuff. He had vibration problems from his tyres in the race, which means he finished like 4th, and he obviously had a problem in qualifying as well.
It could have been a different race if Hamilton was up there, but Rosberg did what he had to do.
Yeah.
Got the win quite comfortably.
Yeah.
And just showed his class, really. And
just quickly go through the results. Rosberg took his 5th victory of 2016 with Vettel 2nd. Perez scoring the spot 4th and his 2nd podium finish of the year in 3rd. With Raikkonen 4th, despite receiving a 5-second time penalty for going over the pit entry line without entering the pits. Hamilton finished 5th despite his qualifying error. Bottas finishing 6th in Williams. Ricciardo, Verstappen, Hülkenberg and Massa completing the points finishes. Then the rest of the finishes were Button, Nasser, Grosjean, Magnussen, Palmer, Gutierrez, Ericsson and Harriento, with the retirees of Alonso, Verline, Sainz and Kvyat. The winner from the Badger GP European from the Formula 1 League for that event was Team Martin, so well done Martin for winning that one with 107 points. The driver of the day went to Force India's Sergio Perez. The fastest pit stop went to Williams' Felipe Massa with a record breaking time of 1.92 seconds. Wow. And the fastest lap went to, once again, Nico Rosberg in the Mercedes. Moving on to Austria now. Austria has been like a historical circuit over the years. Obviously it's had its gap from the calendar since 2003, returned in 2014. But do you enjoy the Austrian track, Harry?
I do personally. Yeah, it's quite a small lap, but I feel there's always stuff happening there.
It's a tricky one because because the lap times are so small. You expect the gaps between, very little. So if you make a mistake, for example, that's going to cost you dear. And don't forget, because the exceeding track limits rule. You go wide, between turns 8 and 9, which is the second to last and the last corner, your time, like the lap time, the next lap would get invalidated because you'd gain an advantage by, you know, accelerating off the track onto the start finish straight. Do you find that?
Yeah, I like this. I like this race actually. I used to have this race on my classic F1 game in 1999 to 2002 or something, and it was good. That was a good game, by the way. But yeah, it was an exciting race. A lot of elevation changes as well in the tracks. So you're going up a hill and you're going down. Makes it more, as a viewer, makes it more appealing to look at. And with the Red Bull ball thing they've put in there now, so that looks quite cool.
In the mountains as well. That is something different in comparison to any other circuit. I think that's very, very nice. But the most important, like, controversial moment from Austria is, of course, the last lap incident between Rosberg and Hamilton there. Well, I'd like to say, ding ding, round 3 of 2016. How did you feel from the accident? Because,
well, watching it, it was clear that it was Rosberg's fault. Hamilton gave him the room on the inside. Rosberg decided to turn late and go into the side of him. I don't know why he done it, because he then ended up finishing 4th.
Yeah.
It's an odd move to me. Obviously, we spoke about their crash earlier in the season, live on air, and we said that they are two top dogs who want the top spot, and they are going to fight. But it just seemed a really odd decision for me.
Yeah.
and with the grid penalties that Rosberg and Vettel took, Button started 3rd on the grid and finished 6th. That's a fantastic result for him, especially.
Yeah. That's I think Button's highest place finish of the season, I believe.
Yes, it is, yeah.
So I think a small track suited them, obviously, without the long straights, because if it was like China's straight, Button would have been swamped up by the cars who would be quicker, but a more technical track, more turns, I think that suited McLaren in that race.
And, you know, despite all the sort of drama, you know, the Vettel tyre blowout earlier in the race and all the retirees in the closing stages, very well done to Pascal Wehrlein, you know, getting Manor's first point of the year. You know, they very, very much needed that.
He's a good driver, Pascal Wehrlein. I mean, he's doing well in that car.
Despite the car's sort of problems over the
Yeah.
years, but he's without a doubt the best car they've had since
Yeah.
they've entered the sport, isn't it? You know, because, you know, although it's been nip and tuck in the qualifying between him and Harry Anto when they were together, but in the race where it matters the most, you know, he got the very much best out of the car, which put them ahead of Sauber crucially in the Constructors' Championship.
Yeah, Pascal Wehrlein's looking like one for the future, really. With like, he could probably go to like a Sauber, a Renault, something like that. Maybe Toro Rosso to give him a chance or something. But Toro Rosso always promote from within their academy and stuff. So, but yeah, he's looking like a promising driver and probably one to watch for the future, I'd say.
Right.
Yeah, I was actually slightly surprised when they announced Burton's replacement, as I actually thought someone like Wehrlein might go to someone like that, because he is a very promising young driver. He's making a poor car work in a good field, so I'm actually surprised.
And quickly go through the results. Hamilton, despite the last lap drama, because Rosberg was leading going into the last lap, but Hamilton managed to take advantage and claim another victory, taking his 3rd of the year, with Verstappen finishing 2nd, Raikkonen 3rd, Rosberg finishing 4th despite his clash with Hamilton that wrecked his front wing, and also receiving a 10-second time penalty for causing the accident. Ricciardo finishing 5th, Bottas 6th, Grosjean in the Haas in 7th, Sainz 8th, Bottas in 9th, with Wehrlein taking the final point in the Manor in 10th. With Gutierrez, Palmer, Nasser, Magnussen, Ericsson and Harry Anto the finishers, with Perez, Alonso, Hulkenberg and Massa, despite being classified, didn't finish, with Vettel and Kvyat the non-classified drivers. The winner of that for the Badger GP Formula 1 League for that event was me, Cairns Racing, 177 points. The driver of the day went to Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. The fastest pit stop went to Felipe Massa in the Williams with 2.16 seconds, and the fastest lap went to Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes. If you guys have any thoughts or anything that we've been discussing so far, or you want a topic you want us to talk later on, then do please tweet in at Brayford Radio, or you can send us posts through the Formula Tom or Brayford Radio Facebook pages, and as well as answering our next question, which is as follows. Who was the last Austrian to win in Formula 1? Okay, who was the last Austrian to win in Formula 1? So a Grand Prix, a race. The answer will be given after a Have a Nice Day by Stereophonics. This is Tom Cairns on Formula Tom. You are listening to Brayford Radio. And that was Have a Nice Day by Stereophonics. The question we asked before we left was, who was the last Austrian to win a Formula 1 race? Did you guys have an answer?
I can think of one personally.
I couldn't either.
I personally couldn't think of one, but my dad had messaged me in and he thinks it's Gerhard Berger.
I can tell you the answer is Gerhard Berger, so very well done to Mr. Bulbrook back home, very, very well done. So if we go on now to the British Grand Prix, I mean, Hamilton very, very much adores the circuit, you know, he adores the fans so much, and the reception he gets when he goes out on the circuit and when he wins a race, it's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. He obviously, at the British Grand Prix, always makes more of an effort to, obviously because of his home fans, to interact with the fans. Yeah, basically we waved to him, we did, they're all carrying him at the end of the race when he went in the crowd, and
Yeah.
literally it was great to watch though, because of the passion of the British fans.
Yeah, I'm very sure he was carrying the Union Jack round.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but one person who went to the race himself was Jack Murphy, who is part of our team. You know, I'm pretty sure he would have got a good eye of how everything panned out in the race, because it started off wet. So I think the first 5 laps it was behind the safety car, and when it pulled in, a lot of the drivers were just making the change from wet to intermediates. It was just manic in the pit lane, because I was conscious of.
I just remember the Weber Coulthard on Channel 4, the pit, the grid walk, it's so funny.
Really?
It's hilarious. They're like a comedy duo, it's funny. Just British humour really at its best. But I think they should be the new Top Gear presenters. With Button, Weber and David Coulthard.
I wouldn't complain about that.
That'd be a good one.
So obviously Hamilton won, much to Rosberg's low, and to compromise Rosberg, he had the radio debacle in the closing stages. So what happened, Martin?
So basically he had a problem, he asked for help. They gave him help because they thought he was going to stop on the track, which then obviously by the rules he's allowed to have information given to him to stop any chance of the car stopping on track. They thought they was well within their rights. It was at the time a bit, is it actually going to stop, is it not? And we weren't sure, and because of that reason they have then gone and given him the 10-second penalty. Well,
of course, you know, I felt it was damage limitation with that 10-second penalty. I know he lost second, but had the team not given Rosberg anything over the radio, he could have been out of the race, couldn't he?
Yeah, he certainly could have done. So, yeah, I'm not really sure how they came up with only a 10-second penalty, because if he didn't get the information, he might not have finished and got 0 points. But instead, he's been given 15 points.
Yeah, with this it seems like it's not black and white. The teams get confused what they can tell the driver and what they can't. So in this situation, with the Rosberg situation, the team thought they were in the right to do it, but obviously they weren't. So the teams need to be clarified on when it is, what they can say to the drivers and when it is. But I think it's a stupid rule. Like, the teams should be able to tell the drivers how to fix the cars, because they're not mechanics at the end of the day. They're there to drive the cars. So I think it's kind of, they need to get rid of that rule and get back to what they did last season.
But do you understand why this rule is there in the first place? Because we want the drivers to be unaided by the team.
Yeah, but if it means stopping out on track, then you're not going to have any cars out there. So.
I mean, going through the results, Hamilton took his 3rd consecutive home Grand Prix win, with Verstappen with a spirited 2nd place finish, with Rosberg 3rd, Ricciardo 4th, Raikkonen 5th, Perez, Hülkenberg, Sainz, Vettel finishing 9th despite getting a 5-second penalty. I think it was. 5-second penalty for forcing Felipe Massa off the track, with Kvyat taking the final point in 10th. Massa in 11th, with Jenson Button finishing what could be his final home Grand Prix in 12th. Alonso 13th, and it's Bottas, Nasser, Gutierrez and Magnussen, who finished 17th, despite not finishing, with Palmer, Arianto, Grosjean, Ericsson and Verline, the non-finishers. The winner of that in the Formula Tom League was Team Jedi for Silverstone with 170 points. The driver of the day went to Max Verstappen. The fastest pit stop went to Mercedes, so first time the Williams failed to get the fastest pit stop award with 2.33 seconds. The fastest lap went to the Mercedes of Nico Rosberg. So if we go on to Hungary, we like to say it's more of a straightforward fight between Hamilton and Rosberg, because if you remember back in qualifying, Alonso spun in Q3, and it was a debate. It was quite debatable about whether Rosberg didn't slow down during the double wave yellow period, because double wave yellows means slow down, be prepared to stop. But I think it just went as Rosberg was sort of thinking, I need to slow down, but I think he just kept his foot on the throttle and got the pole position that they needed. Would you say that, Martin?
Yeah, I would say that. It is obviously at the time it was very. Was it not? It's very debatable, but I think it was actually fair, and obviously he did then go and get the pole.
Harry?
It was a very split-second thing. If he'd have been like 1 second further back down the road, there's been no debate about it at all. So it's just it could have not been.
Yeah, I had to go down the same lines as that. I mean, it was a split-second decision. I mean, yeah, I think it was fine at the end of the day. Because Rosberg's at the end of the day is an F1 driver, and he'll do everything in his power to get pole. So if he thinks I can go, he's going to go. So.
And going into the race, I mean, Hamilton got the better start than Rosberg. He got him, I think, around the outside or something, or he just got the better start going into the first corner than Rosberg, which led to the victory. I mean, the most controversial point in the race was the clash between Verstappen and Raikkonen at turn 2 in the closing stages, because Raikkonen felt that Verstappen blocked him illegally. I mean, what was your verdict on that, Martin?
So I watched the David Coulthard and that talk about it, and other drivers were talking about it, and it's because Verstappen, what he does is he holds the line, and instead of making a gradual move over to block him off, he does it almost at the very last second, which technically is still legal, but it's just the frowned upon thing, because obviously it's a not very nice way of driving. And obviously Raikkonen looked at it, and from his perspective it must have looked like a very horrible move.
From perhaps like between the oldest and the youngest drivers on the grid. I mean, Raikkonen's saying that he's seen drivers being penalised for less. I mean...
Yeah, I'd say that. I mean, obviously Verstappen's young, so he's got to learn these what's right and what's wrong in F1, but yeah, it made for exciting viewing at the end of the day anyway. I was excited by it. It was probably like the most eventful thing in the race. I mean, it was kind of apart from like the start, Hamilton took Rosberg, but it's kind of a straightforward victory for Mercedes. So that was probably the best thing that happened in the race. But yeah, Verstappen sometimes like bends the rules a bit, but it's not. At the end of the day, it's not illegal, so why not do it?
It's good to see, really. I mean, he didn't get punished for it, which means it's okay. Yeah. Plus, it could bring a bit of excitement back in.
Yeah, F1 needs a bit more excitement in it because they've taken out the fuel thing, which is coming back next year, which I'm looking forward to.
And going through the results, Hamilton and Rosberg make it a 1-2 for Mercedes. It's more of a rarity to see Mercedes taking 1-2s this year in comparison to last year. Ricciardo finishing 3rd, Vettel 4th, Verstappen 5th, Raikkonen finishing 6th, despite starting outside the top 10. Then it's Alonso in 7th, it's a good finish for him. Sainz in 8th, Bottas 9th, and Hulkenberg at points finishes in 10th. Another good result for Alonso.
Yeah, Alonso's obviously a quality driver. I think he's probably up there with the most talented. He's just not got the tools.
Despite in the car that he's in.
Yeah, I mean he's run 2 World Championships in the Renault back in 2005, 2006, I believe. And obviously Ferrari was strong back then, so he shows his class. But with this McLaren, obviously it's not what it could be, but I hope he gets like another chance to win a World Championship. Maybe in the next. He's probably got maximum 2 years left, I'd say.
Alonso.
Yeah,
because he's on the contract next year in that.
Yeah, he's on the contract, but if McLaren don't have a good season next season, I think he'll move on.
And do you think that'll open the door for Jensen to come back in?
Well, there is a contract. He's got a contract offer, but he might be looking to do other things. But it depends if McLaren want to bring through another young prodigy through. So we'll have to wait and see. But I hope Button comes back in. So.
Yeah. And just going through the final finishes, Perez, Palmer, Gutierrez, Grosjean, Magnussen, Kvyat, Nasser, Massa, Verline, Ericsson and Harrianto, with Jensen Button the only driver to have failed to finish the Hungarian Grand Prix. Honey Badger GP was the winner of that event in the Formula 1 League. The driver of the day went to Kimi Raikkonen for his outside top 10 start to 6th, and the fastest pit stop went to Mercedes once again with Rosberg with 2.15 seconds, and the fastest lap went to Kimi Raikkonen in the Ferrari. Whilst we've been discussing the races, you can be involved in the show via Twitter at Brayford Radio, or you can send us posts or messages for the Facebook pages of Formula Tom or Brayford Radio, along with answering our next question, I should say, of the evening, and it is, who is Hungary's only F1 driver in history? I'll repeat the question again. Who is Hungary's only F1 driver in history? The answer will be given after Sigala's Give Me Your Love, featuring John Newman and Niall Rogers. This is Tom Cairns on Formula Tom. You are listening to Brayford Radio. And that was Give Me Your Love by Sigala, featuring John Newman and Niall Rogers. The question we asked before we left was, who is Hungary's only F1 driver in history? Any guesses, guys?
No.
No?
No.
No? Martin?
No question, no. But I've been texting from my brother, and it'll be my dad and mum as well, and they've said Zolt Baumgartner. Something like that.
So I can tell you it is correct, yes. It's Zolt Baumgartner, who drove for Jordan and Minardi in 2003 and 2004. His best finish of 8th in the United States Grand Prix at Indianapolis in 2004. So let's go on to Hockenheim in Germany, guys, because Hamilton, he seems to be in a league of his own. 6 wins from 7 races, since the clash between him and Rosberg at the Spanish Grand Prix in May.
Yeah, it kind of helps that Rosberg's back start slipping from 1st to 4th, and it also helped that, obviously he forced Max Verstappen off the track. Controversial one again, but Hamilton does what he does best, and when he gets in front, he stays there unless there's a problem in his car. So he does what he needs to do. And yeah, at this point in the season, he was looking unstoppable, really.
Yeah, I agree. As I said earlier in the show, I think Monaco, when Hamilton got his first win, really turned his season around. And as he says, he got 6 wins in 7, which is phenomenal. That's that performance should win you a championship. And here we are now, and it's still up in the air. It's just it's an incredible season, really.
Do you think at that point in July, did you feel that the title's Lewis's? Did you feel at that time that the title was Lewis's at that point?
Yes,
Colin?
I did.
Yeah, I did. I just felt like Hamilton had the experience of doing it 3 times before.
Coming from behind to do it.
He did it in his first season. Last season was kind of straightforward for him. Well, he'd have a really straightforward season, but straightforward.
From last year, he led the championship in the first race.
Yeah, Rosberg just didn't seem. I don't know. He didn't seem right last year. I don't know what was up with him, but this year he seems to be on the ball this year. So.
Harry?
Yeah, I wouldn't have said it was certainty because it was so far to go, and there was always going to be reliability issues, controversy, and everything. But you'd have thought at least 60% it was Lewis's, and then obviously Nico's ahead now, so it could be anyone's now.
Mm-hmm. Just quickly go through the top 10 finishes. Hamilton won with the 25 points, but 7 seconds clear of Daniel Ricciardo in second, then it's Verstappen, Rosberg and Vettel in 5th, Raikkonen 6th. So it was Mercedes, Red Bull and Ferrari then at the top 6. Then it's Force India of Nico Hülkenberg in 7th, Button 8th, Bottas 9th and Perez in 10th. It was touching out. Do we find the midfield a very interesting thing to be watching? Because the Mercedes, Ferraris and Red Bulls seem to be in a league of their own at the front. But what about the midfield, the lower end of the points?
Yeah, Sauber, Force India, Toro Rosso, the teams that make up the midfield. Personally, I like looking at the front of the race, but F1 fanatics like looking in the middle, the little duels between the little teams.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's exciting. It's offering if you favour the smaller teams, and it's offering a good excitement for the fans, I suppose. But it's still tight, I believe, in the midfield as it stands. But it's good.
Martin?
Yeah, so out of the mid teams, I certainly think Force India is the strongest team out of the mid teams at the minute. I think Williams are very close to them, McLaren are getting there now, but obviously at the start of the season they was way off. Renault, they're very unreliable, I found, this season. And then at the bottom of the field you obviously have the Sauber, you have the Manor, you have the Toro Rosso. They're in a bit of a funny place at the minute.
And Haas as well.
As well. I'm not really sure because they're not quite up with the mid people. They're not battling that often. but they're not rock bottom all the time. So
just quickly finish the classification of the finishers. Gutierrez was 11th, so just missed out on his first point for Haas. Alonso finished 12th. He was in line in the points in closing stages, but tire degradation got the better of him. Grosjean, and then Sainz, Kvyat, Magnussen, Verline, Ericsson, Palmer, and Haryanto, which proved to be his last race for the team. And it was the two Brazilians of Felipe Nasr and Felipe Massa that didn't finish the race. And I mean, do you think it's a bit of a coincidence finding two drivers, same nationalities, same first name spelling, and similar pronunciation?
And similar skill, I think.
Skill.
Nazar is a very good young driver. He was good last year. Massa is just in 2008 just missed out on the World Championship, but I think he's a very good driver. Probably declining over the last few years, but it's only natural for like Raikkonen's not winning races now and stuff. But they're both very good drivers, and yeah, it's confusing now. Nazar, Massa, Nazar, yeah.
Nazar, Felipe Massa.
One needs to change his name.
It's just like if they were like on the same row of the grid, Felipe Massa and Felipe Nazar, and people just, those sort of avid Formula 1 fans were just saying, where's Felipe Nazar coming from? And like, because I knew Nazar from like Formula 3 as well before he got into Formula 1 actually, or something. Just to finish off these results, there was the winner from that event and the Formula Tom League for the Badge GP was Team Martin, so very well done Martin with 122 points. The driver day went to the Red Bull of Daniel Ricciardo. The fastest pit stop went to Williams' Felipe Massa over a time of 2 seconds flat, and the fastest lap went to Red Bull's Daniel Ricciardo. Going on to Spa now, it's a chain of events in Spa. Obviously, before the weekend, Hamilton would start at the back of the grid with the, let's say, ridiculous grid penalty. I think it was 50, was it 55? It was 55, wasn't it? 55 or 75, can't remember.
Someone tweeted in saying he pretty much just start on like the toilet, run out, get in his car and then go to make up for the 55 grid penalty. But it was a bit stupid, I don't know what
it's all because the Alonso, weren't it? Because Alonso got 30 something penalty as well, didn't he? At the same
and
time.
they both started on the back row. But it turned out that the damage limitation paid off for them, because Hamilton not only finished third, but it also kept him in the lead in the Drivers' Championship. As for Alonso, he came through from 22nd to 7th. So very well done to the pair of them. Despite the, what happened at the start before the red flag, because the accident, obviously the chain of events, the Verstappen, Raikkonen, Vettel incident at La Source, followed by the clash with Verline and Button that put him out. Sainz had the punch on the second lap, and then the enormous shunt for Magnussen on the exit of Eau Rouge. I mean, thankfully he was all right from the impact.
That was a ridiculously fast crash. To go in that quickly. Obviously he walked away, which is really good to see. But the speed at which he hit that barrier.
Yeah, he only came out I think he said his foot hurt or something. That was his only.
Yeah, because he was limping, but the good thing was because he was spinning backwards, he went backwards into the barrier rather than go head on. Because if he went head on, it would have been sort of like a
lot less stuff.
The scary thing was his head thing flew off.
The headrest flew off.
Coulthard was like he's never seen that happen before, but it was a bit strange to see, but obviously with the heavy impacts as well.
Yeah, I'm surprised they hadn't looked into that, because obviously it is such a dangerous thing. There must be some design error, or it weren't fitted in properly for that to happen. They must have looked into it, because you can't have every time someone hits a wall backwards, the headrest coming over top of them, because that could do some really bad, serious danger.
Serious damage.
Serious damage.
Yeah, because I think from what I saw on the slow-mo replay, it wasn't the fact that he was taking too much curb. It's just those little bumps as he was coming off the curbs. That was what lost him the rear end, and then he was unable to keep control of the car. But I just think it was one of these things. I don't think it was driver error. I just think it was just something that you see in a Formula 1 car these days. It looks silly, but it's actually very easy to do. I'm sure a lot of drivers have done it themselves, like in lower formulas. Even like Mark Webber, for example.
Yeah, well, it is such a famous corner as well, that one. So, because it's such a high-speed corner. So, it's always bound to happen, and if it does happen, obviously you get a big crash like what happened.
Go through the results from Spa. Rosberg took his first victory. He's only his second victory since the Russian Grand Prix in May. Ricciardo was second, Hamilton finishing third despite starting from the back. Hülkenberg finishing 4th. Very good result with Perez 5th, so it's the best two-car finish for Force India this year. Vettel was 6th, Alonso 7th, Bottas, Raikkonen, massive finish in the point scorers. Verstappen, pointless in 11th, Gutierrez, Grosjean, Kvyat, Palmer, Ocon finishing his first Grand Prix in 16th, Nasser in 17th. Then it's Magnussen, Ericsson, Sainz, Button and Verline who did not finish. Team Jedi was the winner from the Formula 1 League for that event with 182 points, so very, very well done there. With the driver day, that went to Lewis Hamilton. With fastest pit stop went to Williams of Valtteri Bottas with a time of 2.14 seconds, which confirmed Williams had won this year's DHL fastest pit stop award. The fastest lap went to Lewis Hamilton. And we want to hear your opinions on the season so far. In order to do that, you need to tweet in at Brayford Radio. Alternatively, you can send in your posts or messages via the Facebook page of Formula Tom or Brayford Radio, whichever. As well as answering our next question, which is, where was the Belgian Grand Prix last location before Spa? Where was the Belgian Grand Prix last location before Spa? The answer will be given after Low by Coldplay. This is Tom Kens on Formula Tom. You are listening to Brayford Radio. And that was Low by Coldplay. The question we asked before we left, actually we didn't give out the question, did we? Oh yeah, it was who was the only driver to not that one. No, oh yeah, we did ask the question. Where was the Belgian Grand Prix last location before Spa? My apologies. I don't suppose you guys had a guess, did you?
No.
No.
Always known as
Yeah. It's because I've got the paper on the floor, you see. So I was just thinking, have I had the question? No, I can tell you the answer. It's Zolder. Okay, so Zolder was the last location before Formula 1 moved to Spa. Okay, so there you go. Let's go on to Monza, one of the most evocative circuits on the Formula 1 calendar. How much love do you have for the circuit?
Personally, it's my favourite circuit. I mean, I do like Spa, I like Silverstone, but I just like the straights at Monza. And it's always good to see the Ferrari fans there, because they're fanatic.
Yeah, it is home of the Ferrari, which, as we all know, is the famous red colour. Everyone loves it, and Italy go crazy over it.
Callum?
Yeah, it's I personally think it's a great track. The high speed corners as well add to the look of the audience love it as well. I love it, and the straights are magnificent. I mean, you get to see who's the fastest car as well, generally on pace and not just corners and stuff, which I kind of like a lot of track.
And going on to the qualifying as well then, because Gutierrez, you got the Haas into Q3 for the first time, and then that's a great achievement for him.
Yeah, I remember that. I don't think he did very well in the race, but
no, he didn't have a good start, unfortunately.
Yeah, in the qualifying, he did a really good job. I mean, that's impressive from Gutierrez as well, who's had a bit part season. He's been good in some, but then awful in some of the races. Kind of a young driver, like he needs to learn a bit. But he had a really good race that race. So.
If you were the team principal of Haas, Martin, not saying that you are, but would you still have faith in Gutierrez despite Grosjean getting all the points so far and Gutierrez not? But Gutierrez seems to be sort of outperforming Grosjean over the past few races recently.
Yeah, I'd obviously Grosjean's got the points, Gutierrez doesn't, but Gutierrez got him into Q3. He is obviously certainly at the minute he is outperforming his teammate, and he is still a great driver. I know he's still not quite getting into the points, but he's always like borderline at the minute, and I think it's just going to take him one breakthrough and get a point, and I think from there he's going to then get loads of confidence and really break on.
Mm-hmm. And one of the most important events during the Monza race, Hamilton's start. I mean, that really cost him dear, didn't it?
Yeah, dropping from the start of the grid to 6th, you dropped 6th on the first corner, not even the first lap. I mean, that was awful. Like I said earlier in the show, if Hamilton loses this championship, it's going to be on his starts. I mean, that's the be all and end all.
Does he have it? Will he have only himself to blame?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think in this race he just blamed himself. He didn't blame the team at all. It was his fault for the start, which tells you all really. I mean,
it's like those split-second things with that.
Yeah.
You see, it's the clutch. Because I don't know if you played the latest F1 game, but you had to put the clutch in first before you release it, and then you go in first gear from the start. It's not like in the old days where, you know, on an F1 game you just hold the accelerator down and then go. You have to release the clutch first and then accelerate. But we know he's experienced of that, but at this time of the season he cannot afford any more of them, can he?
No, he needs to kind of, being so far behind now, due to the default not finishing the last race, he needs to kind of up his starts. But I have confidence in Hamilton. He's done this before, and I think he'll come back. But
do you think he'll make a comeback, Harry?
Yeah, because personally I feel Rosberg's got a mistake in him.
Yeah.
He always seems to go down to the wire, but then there's always one thing that gets them.
The crucial thing for Hamilton is the next race is Suzuka, and he's very good at that track. So if he wins there,
he's back on track then.
He's back on track. He's got the confidence. He won how many races? 5 out of 6 races earlier in the season. If he could do that, he's won the championship.
Mm-hmm. And just go through the result at Monza. Rosberg back-to-back wins, with Hamilton finishing second despite his poor start. Then it was Vettel, Raikkonen finishing third and fourth. So Ferrari on the podium at their home Grand Prix in front of the Tifosi. Ricciardo was fifth, despite his great overtaking manoeuvre at Bottas at the Rettifilio chicane. Would you say that was your overtake of the season?
Definitely, from so far back.
Yeah, he came. Yeah, I remember that. He came from so far back. He launched the car really late on the brakes. Brilliant overtake.
It was a replica of Hamilton's move on Raikkonen in 2007, where he came from so far back and he just lunged up the inside and he pulled it off so brilliantly. I mean, that was the quality of Lewis Hamilton.
Last season, Ricciardo had a great overtake. It was at Monza when he went that way and then went the other way around Vettel. I think it was last year. And every year he seems to have great overtakes. I mean, Ricciardo is one of the best at overtaking.
He's a very good driver, Ricciardo.
Yeah. He's probably one of the most entertaining and probably the most nicest person on the grid. Probably.
I'm not sure how I feel about the shoe thing though.
No, I'm not sure how I feel about that.
We'll go through the rest of the finishes. Bottas finished 6th, Verstappen 7th, Perez 8th, Massa 9th and Hulkenberg in 10th. So only the top 5 teams in the constructors scoring points there. Then it was Grosjean, Button, Gutierrez, Alonso, Sainz, Ericsson and Magnussen, Ocon in 18th. And then we have 4 retirees of Kvyat, Verline, Palmer and Nasser. The winner of that event in the Formula Tonley was Team Jedi again with 126 points, so very well done Team Jedi. The driver of the day went to Nico Rosberg with the race win. The fastest pit stop went to Red Bull for the first time this year with a time of 1.98 seconds, the first time they've managed to get it under 2 seconds. With the fastest lap of the world went to Fernando Alonso in the McLaren. Going on to Singapore now, the second night race of 2016. Obviously, one of the most humid races to be. I mean, apparently you lose up to 3 kilograms of fluid during the Grand Prix. I mean, would you love to tackle driving for 2 hours during that event?
It'd be eventful. It's certainly the amount of strain they put on their bodies throughout this race is incredible. For them to then get up and celebrate as they do on the podium, I don't know how they still have the energy.
Mm-hmm. So it was Rosberg's first win in Singapore, which helped him take back the lead in the championship. And also, sorry, go on. Were you going to say something, Colin?
No, I'm alright.
Alright, okay. No, I was going to say about the marshal as well, because on the restart after the safety car period, there was the marshal out on the circuit. I mean, my word. I mean, how did he survive that? Harry?
I think it was
Go on, Harry.
Well, it seemed to all happen that weekend. Obviously, we had a person run onto the track as well. So, you need to get it under control, really. And how a driver didn't run into him.
You were going to say something as well, Colin?
The safety car, they called the safety car in before the marshal was off the track, so it was the FIA's fault. They should have checked all the cameras, see if the track was clear. Obviously it wasn't. The marshal was still trying to get debris off the track or something. And then the safety car came in, so he had to run down the pit straight to get off the track.
That's his marshal point.
Yeah. So I think it's an error from FIA, but you don't see it every week. So I think it's kind of probably kind of learnt from this now and double checking everything.
A learning curve for the FIA then.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a rarity really because
Yeah.
Yeah, you never see that.
no.
A Martian got killed in the Canadian Grand Prix like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, but that wasn't because
Yeah.
of the.
That was after the race.
Yeah,
or
it was the
something,
way where they were
wasn't
towing a car away. You know,
Yeah.
it was a very, very sad time there. But Ricciardo came very, very close. You know, because he had nothing to lose when he put on that last set of tyres. You know, to catch Rosberg. Do you think if they had 1 or 2 more laps, do you think he would have done it?
Yes, definitely.
It's so difficult to overtake them.
But it is so difficult, but he just had so
Yeah.
much more speed than Rosberg.
I think he was. There was 3-second lap difference between them, so he was catching 3 seconds a lap. So I think he would have done it.
But bearing in mind on the last lap that Rosberg could afford to back off, so
Yeah.
had he not backed off on the last lap, do you think Ricciardo could have still overtaken him, or do you think it was Rosberg having it under control?
Rosberg had it under control for me.
Yeah, he had it under control, but because obviously they made Mercedes power engine, but Ricciardo looked like he had the pace, he had the tyres obviously pitting, Rosberg not, but at the end of the day Rosberg won, that's all that mattered really in the end.
And so Rosberg did win the Singapore Grand Prix. It's a time of 1 hour 55 minutes 48 seconds. I think that's the fastest time of a Singapore Grand Prix we've ever had since its debut in 2008. Ricciardo was second, despite being only half a second behind him at the end. Hamilton was third with Raikkonen fourth. Vettel came from the back of the grid to finish in fifth for Ferrari. Verstappen finished in sixth with that poor start he had at the beginning. Alonso seventh in McLaren, that's a fantastic result. Perez eighth, Kvyat ninth, and Kevin Magnussen scoring Renault's first point since Russia in 10th place. I mean, talking with Renault, we've spoken about Renault earlier in the show, but do you think that was very much what they needed, wasn't it? Despite all the reliability issues and car performance earlier on.
I think it was what they needed, and especially with Magnussen, obviously his massive crash in Spa, a couple of races before Singapore. I think he just got his confidence back up. Renault looking good at the minute. Magnussen's a quality driver. Julian Palmer's not done bad either. He's just been around the 13th, 12th position, 11th. Just needs to kick on a bit, but I believe with a better power engine in his car or changing teams, he would get in the top 10.
Mine.
Yeah, I've always liked Magnussen. I said at the start I thought he was really going to be a driver to look out for, but obviously the season started, the Renaults weren't great, they was off the pace, they had all the reliability issues, but again Magnussen's come back off a horrific crash 2 races ago, and he's gone and scored a point in a car which I'd say is so unreliable. It's really, it's incredible how unreliable it has been this season.
Yeah. Go over the rest of the finishes. Gutierrez finished 11th. Okay, I don't know how many times he finishes 11th this year, but not score points. Massa finishing 12th with Nasser 13th. Massa and Nasser coming up in here in sympathy. Sainz, Palmer, Verline, Ericsson and Ocon, with Button, Bottas, Hulkenberg and Grosjean, who didn't start the race. Those were the retirees. The winner of that event in the Formula 1 League was Mark's Mercedes GP with 124 points. The driver of the day went to Ferrari Sebastian Vettel. The fastest pit stop went to the Mercedes Lewis Hamilton with a time of 2.14 seconds, and the fastest lap went to Red Bull's Daniel Ricciardo. For you guys to have your views on everything that we have covered so far, since we began at 8 o'clock this evening, do please tweet in at Brayford Radio or send us a post or message via the Facebook pages of Formula Tom or Brayford Radio, as well as answering our next question. Okay, who is the only driver to have scored points at every race in Singapore? Okay, so it's a simple question. Who is the only driver to have scored points at every race in Singapore? Okay, the answer will begin after Mumford & Sons' Believe. This is Tom Cairns on Formula Tom. You are listening to Brayford Radio. And that was Believe by Mumford and Sons. The question we asked about a few minutes ago was who is the only driver to have scored points at every race in Singapore? What did you guys go for?
I went for Sebastian Vettel.
I also went for Vettel.
I went for Fernando Alonso, and my parents also messaged me in and said Alonso.
And I can tell you the answer is Sebastian Vettel.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. The reason why is because I'll give you the results of over the years he has. 5th in 2008, 4th in 2009, second in 2010, first in 2011, first in 2012, first in 2013, second in 2014, first in 2015, and fifth in 2016. So he's scored points. In fact, he's finished in the top 6, or top 5 I should say, at every race in Singapore that Vettel has been in. So moving on now, and we are at the last race, Malaysia. Now, this has changed the championship on its head, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. Unfortunately for Hamilton fans, lap 43, engine failed. Looked like he was cruising to it.
Mhm.
Like I thought he was going to cruise it to the finish, but one lap changed the entire championship, and that's F1 in a nutshell, really.
I mean, I was listening to the commentary, and like, whilst Ricciardo and Verstappen were having their battle of their own, you know, these sort of the grandstand, like in between the back straight and the start finish straight, you could just hear the crowd, like, sort of, you know, sort of cheering, and I was thinking, why are they cheering? And then the camera panned to Hamilton with the engine fail. I was like, oh no, this can't be happening. And, you know, because the thing is, because Ricciardo and Verstappen had their, you know, little battle, had they collided and put each other out of the race, and Hamilton, you know, went out as well, you know, Rosberg would have won that race despite those circumstances, but thankfully that didn't happen. But Red Bull got their 1-2, which was very, very much how they would like it to be. I mean, they had that usual feel of a 1-2 before in the V8 era, but it was good to see them.
Rosberg was, quite lucky in that, because in the first lap, I think it was Vettel who crashed into him.
Mm-hmm.
He could have easily been wiped out, and then there was an incident with Raikkonen where he kind of went hard on Raikkonen. They could have easily both lost the tyres. They could have both crashed each other out. So it seemed like the luck was on Rosberg's side.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite interesting with the Hamilton failed engine. He's questioned Mercedes. He said that there's so many engines that Mercedes make, but it's always his engines that die on him, explode on him in the races, and he's questioning Mercedes and why that happens. So it's quite interesting, because I don't think Rosberg had an engine fail this year. So
no, the last engine failure that Rosberg had was in Monza last year. But we're back to Ricciardo. That's his first win, believe it or not, for over 2 years. The last victory he took was in Spa in 2014. You know, we mentioned about Hamilton's title chances. Do you think it's dented his chances, but do you think he's out of the title race now after?
No, I don't think so.
Because there are a lot of points still on.
There's a lot of points available. At the end of the day, in his second World Championship he won, first Mercedes, he was behind on points. Going into kind of this part of the season, people doubted him. He came through in the end, and quite comfortably really in the end. So I don't think it'll be as comfortable as it was then, because I think Rosberg's a stronger driver now. But I think he's got it in the locker, and he's got the experience.
Mm-hmm. Harry?
It could go either way, really. All it needs is one failure for Rosberg, and Hamilton's head by 2 points if he wins that race.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, as Harry said, obviously 23 points in it now, 125 points left, so there's everything to play for. Obviously, Hamilton, we saw how gutted he was, because when he got out of the car, he done that squat just like on the gravel. You could tell how gutted he was about that race. It's just, it shouldn't knock his confidence, because he's been there, he's been through it all, and he should be able to withhold the confidence, but it's just how big an impact something like that has affected him.
He needs to kind of take the positives. I mean, it's not like Rosberg won that race. He finished third.
It would have been a 33 point lead.
Yeah, it would have been a 33 point lead. He only got 15 points on that race, so it could have been a lot worse for Hamilton. And he's got to take the positives on board. If he kind of sulks over it the next 2 races, the championship will be gone.
Well, I've just pinpointed, had Rosberg won that race, Hamilton would more or less have to win the last 5 races to guarantee the World Championship. But with it being a 23 points lead, he probably need to beat Rosberg in 4 of the races, and then maybe back off in 1. But he wants to win every single race, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's a racer.
realistically, he definitely want to and probably needs to.
At the lower end of the grid, obviously we've got Jenson Button finishing 9th, and Jolyon Palmer getting his first F1 points in 10th there. I mean, we saw Magnussen finishing 10th in the race before in Singapore, but with Palmer now 10th, I mean, we saw how good he was in practice, and unlucky in qualifying, but in the race he got it together and got what he got his reward.
I hope the Renault keep both their drivers on, because I think they owe the drivers for the bad car they've had this year. I mean, with the tools Renault have had, Palmer and Magnussen have done an amazing job in the Renault. Obviously scoring points at the back end of the season, but they're showing promise, and I think they should stick by the drivers because they're two young drivers. They're not like 35, so I think they should keep them, develop them, and then develop the car. Because Renault obviously won World Championships before, so I think they can do it again.
How will they approach their driver loan? Because I'd like to see Jürgen Palmer in Formula 1 again next year, but do you think Renault will keep hold of him or Magnussen?
I think Magnussen's their number one. Just other than experience, he's got the experience of being at McLaren. Kind of lucky to lose his seat there with Button Alonso coming in. I mean, if Fernando Alonso is knocking at your door, you let it open. You open the door, don't you? You don't keep it shut. So, but yeah, I think they should keep him on. Julian Palmer, it's his first season in Formula 1.
He's got a lot to learn.
He has got a lot to learn. But I'd like to see a lot more British drivers on the circuit. Obviously, losing Button next year is going to be a massive blow to obviously British fans.
And if Palmer goes, we've only got one British driver on the grid next year.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to see Palmer on the grid again next year, Harry?
I do, yeah.
It kind of reminds me of the Paul di Resta situation when he left.
Yeah.
He was quite unlucky to leave his seat.
I mean, Paul di Resta might return to Formula 1, because he's currently the test driver with Williams at the moment. I mean, would Williams consider Paul di Resta as an option?
With Massa retiring, that's an option. I didn't really think of that one, but there's a lot of good drivers on the circuit.
I mean, you've got Lance Stroll, who's coming through the ranks at the moment. He's within the frame. I mean, we don't know where Bottas is going to be going yet. And Felipe Nasr. I mean, Felipe Nasr with financial backing, he could be an option to take Felipe Massa's seat next year. I mean, once again the Massa-Nasr coincidence has come back again. And Alonso, with the penalty, we knew he was going to be starting at the back. 22nd to 7th, just like in Spa, another storm and drive from the two-time world champion.
Yeah, it certainly is. Obviously, we know he's a great driver because obviously he's won the championship twice. Twice. And once again, he's proved it again this same season that he can come from the back of the field, get up there in the points. He's not scared to overtake. He's not reckless on his overtakes. He's very smart and calculated and I think that's the age which helps him in that, because obviously he's been there, he's done it, he knows what corners to overtake on, what corners not to, and he's just playing it very calculated, and he's just slow. You don't really see him do big moves, you just see him slowly work his way up the grid and he's in the points.
Harry?
His racecraft is incredible, he just seems to be able to take any car and put it in the top 10 at the moment. Maybe not in
some races, but in races like Malaysia where it's wide. I mean, talking about Malaysia, because it's in the latter part of the season, the reason why it was in the latter part of the season, unlike previously, was because they've been resurfacing the track. I mean, you might not have noticed, but turn 2, that little sort of banking at turn 2, that it's being reduced now, so it's like a normal sort of banking as you see on a Formula 1 track, but the turn 3 banking is still there.
Yeah.
Going through the results then, Ricciardo and Verstappen make it a Red Bull 1-2. It's the first 1-2 for the team from Brackley since Brazil 2013, with Vettel and Webber finishing first and second there. Rosberg finishing third, bringing the only Mercedes home. Raikkonen finishing fourth, despite he couldn't really catch Rosberg because Rosberg had that 10-second penalty. Bottas finishing fifth, that's a good result for Williams. Perez sixth, Alonso seventh. Hulkenberg in 8th, Button in 9th, Palmer finishing 10th to score his first F1 points. Then Sainz, Ericsson, Massa, Kvyat, Verline and Ocon in 16th, with 6 retirees of Nasr, Hamilton, Gutierrez, Magnussen, Grosjean and Vettel, who crashed into Rosberg at the first corner on the opening off the race. In terms of the Drivers' Championship now, Rosberg has a 23-point lead over Lewis Hamilton, with 288 playing 265. And Ricciardo 84 points behind. You think it's a long shot, but do you think he's cemented his third place in the championship, the best of the rest?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 44 points ahead of Raikkonen, which
44 points. Yeah, 44.
Fourth.
I mean, surprisingly, Raikkonen's ahead of Vettel as well.
But that shows Vettel's been at times a bit rash this year. He's had a few crashes out, obviously last race as well.
He's kind of got a bit with the cameras. He's kind of got a bit frustrated sometimes, as well as in the car. But it's interesting that if Max Verstappen started at Red Bull at the start of the season, he could be challenging for third, along with Ricciardo. And I think there was a stat after Verstappen's first 5 races at Red Bull, he would have been ahead of Rosberg in the championship. So yeah.
And going through the rest of it, Vettel in 5th with 153, Verstappen on 147, but bearing in mind 13 of those points he came with Toro Rosso. Bottas, Perez, Hülkenberg and Alonso now moves into the top 10 in the championship, with Massa being pushed down to 11th, and it's Sainz, Grosjean, Kvyat, Button in 15th on 19 points, and it's Magnussen. And Palmer, with that point, puts him in 17th now, ahead of Verline and Van Dorn with 1 point. Gutierrez, Ericsson, Nas, Haryanto and Ocon are the only drivers to have yet to score a point this year. In the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes have a 200, just trying to get my maths right, 194 point lead, that was what I was trying to say, over Red Bull with 553 playing 359, but they can clinch the Constructors' Championship at Suzuka this weekend. Ferrari in 3rd with 313, Force India in 4th, 124, 3 points ahead of Williams with 121, then it's McLaren in 6th with 62, 15 points ahead of Toro Rosso in 7th with 47, then it's Haas with 28, Renault with 8, Manor with 1, and Sauber the only team yet to score this year. Do you think Sauber can score a point at any time soon?
No.
Personally, no.
No.
Even with the improved car and obviously their commitment within the sport next year, it's going to take some misfortunes from others,
I
really,
think
isn't
they've kind of concentrating on the new car. I think they've kind of, this season's been a write-off for them, and I don't see them scoring a point, especially when it's going to be Mercedes top 2, Red Bull 3, 4, Ferrari 5, 6, and you're leaving like only 4 places for 4 other cars and they're at the back. So I don't see that.
Guys, do you have your opinions on Malaysia or any of the other races we've been discussing? Do please tweet in at Brave Radio or send in your posts or messages via the Facebook pages of Formula Tom or Brave Radio, as well as answering our next question, which is, who won the inaugural Malaysian Grand Prix in 1999? Who won the inaugural Malaysian Grand Prix in 1999? The answer will be given after Bad Day by Daniel Powter. This is Tom Kent on Formula Tom. You are listening to Brayford Radio. And that was Bad Day by Daniel Powter. The question we asked was, who won the inaugural Malaysian Grand Prix in 1999? Guys, did you have any thoughts?
I thought it was Mika Hakkinen in the McLaren back in 1999.
I thought it might be Michael Schumacher, but not 100% sure on that.
I'm 100% either, but I just wanted to go with something different, so I went with Barrichello.
Who got it right? The answer is none of you got it right. The answer was Eddie Irvine in the Ferrari.
Eddie
Irvine. Yeah, that because Schumacher finished second in the Ferrari to make it 1-2. Hakkinen finished third. Barrichello in the Stewarts finished fifth in that one. But back to Malaysia actually from the last race very quickly, because I didn't go through it before Bad Day came on. The awards, the driver of the day went to Red Bull's Max Verstappen, the fastest pit stop award went to Felipe Massa in the Williams, and the fastest lap went to the Mercedes of Nico Rosberg. Anyway, now from what we've seen in the past, let's look at the future. Okay, so Japan this weekend coming up, back to back with Malaysia. How are we feeling for this weekend in Suzuka? I mean, is it one of your favourite tracks, any of you?
Yeah, I like the Suzuka track. I mean, it's not just the F1 that I watch on there. MotoGP do they race around Suzuka, and that's brilliant to watch as well. But I think it's Hamilton's race, this one. I think he's got the experience. It's one of his favourite tracks, and I think he can start getting the championship points deficit down. So I go for him for the race.
Yeah, I mean, Suzuka over the years, I mean, we've had some amazing races over the years, but we've had some emotional ones as well. I mean, obviously 94, where obviously that aggregate race time, and obviously the incident between, Martin Brundle, when he had the accident, he injured a marshal as well in that one. That was very, very horrific. And of course, the Jules Bianchi accident 2 years ago, I mean, that was a very, very sorry moment for everyone in the F1 paddock, and of course the fans who were watching, including myself. Very horrible to see. I mean, do you have some amazing races that you've watched over the years?
Yeah, of course there has been. It's such an iconic track. Like everyone's. If you look at the overlay of the track, everyone instantly goes, that's Suzuka, because it's just such an iconic shape. It has the high speed straights, has the corners, it has
The
all
130R.
Yeah, it just has it all in it, and it makes it such a good race. It is one of my favourite tracks.
And then we've already mentioned about Hamilton. I mean, you said that Hamilton, this is his race, Callum. You feel he can claw back the gap. Do you think he can claw back the gap, Martin and Harry?
If it's going to be any race, this is where he'll have to assert himself. He has to finish first this race. If he doesn't, then the momentum surely is with Rosberg, and then it becomes an even harder, even tougher battle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, he had the devastating thing what happened last race. This is probably his best track most of the time. You'll normally always see him certainly up there, and to not come here and win it off the horrendous ending to his last race will be gutting for him, and I think then Rosberg will start to take away with it if it don't happen.
With the points lead that Mercedes have, they have a 194 point lead with 215 points left available. Can they clinch the Constructors' Championship this weekend? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
The thing is, by the end of the weekend, the number of points will be 172. They currently have a 194 point lead, so if they can get at least 22 points from the race weekend, then they've guaranteed themselves the Constructors' Championship.
They get a win, it's done.
Yeah.
So
So it's just mainly a gap between Red Bull and Ferrari, the battle for second. What about Renault then? Because 2 points finishes like in Singapore and Malaysia. Can they make it 3 in a row in the points finish? Obviously, I don't know how Suzuka will play out for them because they've never won in Suzuka, believe it or not, Renault. They've never won a
that
race
does
in
surprise
Suzuka.
me.
No, that don't surprise me with how the car is normally always set up, because it's good at cornering, but it's just not good on the speed a lot of the time. Like coming out of the corners, it's just not rapid.
Just to correct myself, they've never taken pole in Suzuka. They have won in 2006 with Alonso, Renault, so apologies for the mistake that I made there. But the telerotations, looking at the telerotations for the weekend, I mean, Mercedes and Ferrari seem to be going for a, very aggressive strategy, I would say, for the race.
Especially Ferrari, with Sebastian Vettel only taking one of the medium compound.
Yeah, that is quite odd, considering obviously the soft is going to be the tyre to go on.
Yeah.
They've all taken loads, but then to have only one medium,
Which means it can only run it once in the entire weekend. Is he going to do it in the race? Or?
He'll probably save it for the race.
He's probably saving it for the race.
But then he doesn't know what it's going to be like
but yeah,
to drive on.
Yeah. I mean, because we've not had a look at the weather yet, so the weather might take a toll on things. So.
Could be rain as well.
because it could come around and the medium's like the best tyre to go on, and then what
In
does
which
then
case-
what does Vettel do?
I mean, it'd be interesting to see how the practice times look, because the practice begins early in the morning over here, 2 o'clock UK time, to watch the first practice session. I mean, looking at the other drivers, I mean, relatively the same, I would say, for the rest of the runners, like midfield to the rear. Who can? I mean, looking at McLaren, I mean, we know how Alonso is known for his great starts, but can he do it again in Suzuka? Because he'll have to rely on his race start, really, to get the best result that he's after.
It depends where he qualifies. If he
Yeah.
qualifies well, then he could just get swamped up at the start. Whereas if he qualifies towards the back, it's going to look like a really good start, even if he's just
think
getting to where he is.
I think it depends on conditions. I mean, if it's raining, that'll help McLaren a lot, getting up the field. But if it's bone dry, it's going to be difficult again for McLaren. Personally, I can't see him getting a top 10 finish, but we'll wait and see with that.
And you guys, we want to hear your opinions on Suzuka this weekend, or any of the other races we've been discussing. And to do that, you need to tweet in at Brayford Radio, please, or send us a post or message on the Facebook pages of Formula Tom and Brayford Radio, as well as answering our final question for tonight. And the question is, how many occasions has the Suzuka circuit decided the Drivers' Championship? Okay, how many occasions has the Suzuka circuit decided the Drivers' Championship? The answer will be given after Klaxons' Golden Scans. This is Tom Kent on Formula Tom. You are listening to Brayford Radio. Golden Scans by the Klaxons. The question we asked before we left was, how many occasions has the Suzuka circuit decided the Drivers' Championship? Guys, the guesses?
I'm going to go with 5.
3 I'm going with.
I've gone with 2, but my dad's gone with 6.
The answer is 11. 11 times Suzuka has decided the Drivers' Championship.
I should have just gone with 15.
Yeah. It decided in 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 96, 98, 99, 2000, 2003 and 2011. Because Sebastian Vettel won with 4 races left that year. So there you go, there's your answer, 11. And I've just named all those years that I've just went by. Now, it's that time of the show where we need to talk about... I'll just put that again. Oh, it doesn't matter. It's Budget GP anyway. So guys, well, so you, Martin, were involved in the league like myself. But how did you do in Malaysia last weekend?
I think I've done pretty good. I think I came 2nd overall, I think, from the weekend.
Yeah, you did actually, because you just Honey Badger GP was the winner of that with 126. You came in second with 103. Then it was Red Bull Dog GP with 93. Then it's Delta Formula 79, Ken's Racing 78, Mark's Mercedes GP 72, Gene Jedi was 64. So your dad will not be very pleased with that.
Yeah, but my predictions were way off. It was my pit wall that got me all my points.
Really?
Yeah, because I had the Red Bull, the Ferrari, then I had Raikkonen and Rosberg, and they got me all my points.
So yeah, basically this Badger GP thing, Callum, it's basically where you name the top 3 finishers for the Grand Prix, the pole sitter, the guy who gets the fastest lap, the first driver to retire, and the number of safety cars that are in the race. So if you were to predict your top 3 for the race weekend, who would it be?
To win the race,
Mhm.
Hamilton. To what was the other one?
Second and third.
Second, Rosberg second. Third, I'd go for Ricardo.
Okay. And who do you think will get the pole? Who do you think?
Pole, Hamilton, I'd say. Yeah. First retirement.
Yeah, first driver to retire. It's a bit of a dart, really, is this?
Who's the most likely?
Bear in mind, nobody in the league, I don't think, has got it so far this year in our league. So
Like last race was Vettel.
So who do you think will, just a huge guess, who do you think will be the first retiree?
I'd say Carlos Sanchez.
Carlos Sainz.
Sainz, yeah.
Carlos Sanchez. You're thinking of the footballer, aren't you? From
Yeah.
Aston Villa.
Alexis Sanchez.
Yeah. Harry, if you were to predict your top 3 for the race weekend, who do you think it would be?
Hamilton, Rosberg, and then I think it's probably going to be Ricardo. It would be Ricardo or Verstappen for me, even though the first person to crash could very possibly be
Anyone.
Verstappen.
Or anyone?
I was going to go with Kvyat
Alright, okay.
because
Who do you think will get the fastest lap?
Hamilton.
Hamilton, Hull?
Again, I'd go Hamilton.
Okay. And the number of safety cars?
1.
1. Helen?
1.
You're going for 1, Martin?
I'm going 1 safety car.
I'm going 1 safety car as well. I've gone for the same as what you two have gone for. Fastest lap, I think I've gone for Rosberg. Ricardo. I've gone for Ricardo for the fastest lap. Pole sitter, I went for Rosberg. And then the next, I think the first retire I've gone for Felipe Nasr. And the 1 safety car I've gone for. How about your pit wall, Martin? Has the pit wall treated you recently?
Yeah, the pit wall gets me all my points. My predictions are rubbish. So yeah, the pit walls give me all my points, mainly because I've got obviously the Ferrari and the Red Bull on my cars, with Haas as my 3rd car, and then my drivers, I've got Grosjean, who gets me the odd race. He gets like quite a lot of bonus points because he'll have a fantastic race and end up in the points.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know how it happens, but it just does. And then I've also got Raikkonen, who's always consistent. It's always like 4th, 5th sort of area.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got Rosberg, which, as we know, he's getting win or second most races.
Win after win.
Yeah.
And just tell you what, I want to take a look at the Suzuka circuit actually, because obviously we've named the corners like 130R and the Degnica, the Dunlop corner, and the S section as well. Any corners that springs to your mind of guys, including the 130R or anything that you feel was going to be really effective during the race?
It's got to be the 130R.
The 130R.
It's got to be.
Well, I don't know if you know, Martin, but do you remember Alonso's manoeuvre on Schumacher over a decade ago? No. It basically went round the outside of him into 130R without lifting off. Without lifting off, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know how he managed to do that. I mean, there are a lot of overtaking places. I mean, the hairpin curve, that has to be Kobayashi's favourite corner, which we demonstrated in 2010. And of course, Kamui Kobayashi is one of 2 Japanese drivers to make it to the podium. He got on the podium in 2012. Aguri Suzuki was the other driver who got on the podium in 1990. So yeah, with the racing, with the times, we mentioned earlier on in the show, practice 1 gets underway at 2 AM UK time, the second practice session 6 AM, third practice on Saturday at 4 AM, qualifying underway at 7, with the race on Sunday getting underway at 6 AM, because the Japanese hours are 8 hours ahead of us in terms of time. And we saw last year's race, very much straightforward for Hamilton, really, because Rosberg got the pole, but Hamilton bet him off the line.
Yeah, Hamilton beat him off the line and then just literally just walked away with it. There was no one going to catch him, and he just breezed to victory.
And Suzuka last year's race was one of 6 races in the history of Formula 1 to have seen all the starters finish that last year. So, maybe we may not get any retirees. I mean, nobody might. I mean, you guessed Kvyat, didn't you?
Yeah.
Who did you go for, Carl?
I went for Carlos.
Carlos Sainz, wasn't it? Yeah. Felipe, I went for Felipe Nasser. Who did you go for again, Martin?
I went for Pascal Wehrlein.
Pascal Wehrlein, okay. Just to remind you, there's only one DRS zone on the Suzuka circuit. The reason it's on the start-finish straight. The reason why they don't put the DRS zone on the back straight where the circuit overlaps before 130R is because drivers don't brake into that 130R corner, so therefore it would be really, really dangerous. Although they have used the DRS in that section in the first couple of years when DRS was first introduced, but because of maybe on the Formula 1 safety grounds or to make it more of a level playing field, drivers can only use the DRS in the DRS zones for all sessions. Just something to go to know. But yeah, the S sessions, I find the S sections always tricky to negotiate because, for all through the games I've played, it's like left, right. It's so important to stay on that racing line throughout the whole section of it. I mean, would you agree with that, Callum?
I would, because if you get off the racing line, you're in the dirty air, you can get debris from the track into your tyres and stuff, and it can cost drivers races, it has done in the past. So yeah, it's crucial that, especially Hamilton, because he needs to win the race, has to stay on the racing line at all times, except probably the start when it's all chaos.
I mean, Harry, you've played around the Suzuka circuit and all the games you've played.
Yeah.
How would you feel is the most daunting corner on that Suzuka track? Would you say the S section, I should say?
I always used to mess up in the S section. It was definitely one of the harder ones, and I imagine as a driver in the car, it'd be very rewarding if you get it right. Hook up the perfect S section, you're on for a really good lap.
Because even if you're in a really midfield car, if you really absolutely nail that section all the way through, as long as you get the other corners right, there's every chance you can get a really, really good time and a good grip position. I mean, that's what Mercedes, I'm sure Lewis Hamilton will be considering that going into qualifying on Saturday. Martin, I don't know if you've played any of the games on Suzuka's track, but what sections of the circuit would you take into consideration the most?
Well, obviously, as we've said, the S bends, obviously. Dunlop corner, that's another big one, because you've just come through the S. You've got a lot of concentration going on, and then you've got this next big sweeping left-hand corner, which it must take it out of the drivers. By the point they've gone, the amount of G's they've put themselves throughout the corners, they must be getting tired towards that last corner. And to keep the concentration up and the speed and keep the perfect line through Dunlop corner is a really big thing.
Yeah, unfortunately that is the end of the show, guys. Thank you for listening and sending your tweets and answers throughout the 2 hours of tonight. If you have missed any of tonight's show, you can follow the podcast on the Facebook page of Formula Tom, or you can head over to the YouTube channel of Formula Tom. They'll be on there as well. We are back to a 1 hour show again next week with a time of 9 PM UK time. It is from me, Martin, Callum and Harry, have a good weekend, enjoy the race, and we'll talk to you again next week. This is Tom Kent on Formula Tom. You are listening to Brayford Radio.